Assalamu alaikum and welcome to my podcast. Today I have an amazing mother, a healthcare professional, and an activist, Taslima Sattar. Taslima, welcome to my show.
Thank you.
Taslima, would you like to briefly introduce yourself?
I'm Taslima Star. I'm a family medicine physician. I am originally from Guyana, South America. We emigrated to the US when I was 8 years old. And there's a traditional Guyanese pathway. We go from Guyana to New York. We usually freeze and then go to Florida. So, that's my family did the same thing, and then I did, we went to Florida when I was 12 years old, so I did middle school, high school, and then medical school in Florida. I was the youngest graduate of my medical school class because I did a dual admissions program there, and then after medical school, I did residency also in Florida. I was the chief resident for my program, and after I finished residency, I had no idea what to do with myself. And so because that was my dream is become a doctor, and that was as far as I had gotten. Then I worked in something called locum tenens for about 6 months. And eventually, I got a teaching job in Texas, in Fort Worth, at the Texas College of Osteopathic Medicine. So I became an assistant professor there and worked at their family medicine clinic and did that for 2 years, then opened my own practice. I had my own practice for 12 years, and eventually I joined a large group in 2021, and just worked for them for about a year and a half.
Okay. And then, so you worked during COVID as well.
Yes, so I still had my own practice when COVID hit,
Mhm.
and thankfully it was my own practice. We were like on our toes. We switched immediately to telemedicine, and we were able to implement all of our systems to just transition the entire practice over to telemedicine.
Wow.
When I joined the larger group, that was one of my stipulations. Like, hey, and I was pregnant at the time too. So I said, hey, I still want to do telemedicine. If somebody really needs to come in, I definitely will see them in person. And they were okay with that for a while, and then in 2022, they decided when things with COVID had calmed down a little bit,
Right.
they decided that, "Hey, we just can't have telemedicine predominant practice."
Mm.
And so they switched me over
To in
to
person.
in-person, and that's where the story gets interesting because I got COVID for the first time in August of 2022.
Right.
And I was sick for about a week, but then recovered, nothing major that I realized. And then after that August 22, every couple of weeks, I would just get sick for about 2 days or so,
Mm.
and I'd have to say, "Hey, I need to reschedule my patients for
Mm.
that 2 days."
Mm.
And I didn't realize what was happening. I thought, "Okay, the kids are in preschool, they're bringing something home, I'm just getting whatever they're bringing home." And then in, December, the end of December, like, probably December 30th, I went out to dinner with a few friends, got COVID again,
Oh, wow.
and January 1st got so sick and have not been back to work since then.
Wow. I mean, that was kind of like life changing for you, right?
Absolutely.
Because coming, first of all, your story is amazing because it's your profile bio is like phenomenal because, just you coming from Guyana and then, that, it, I mean, migrating itself from somewhere.
Mhm.
My husband came when he was 19 from Bangladesh, but he came. and he was by himself, even though he comes from a well-to-do family. But when you come to a new place and just try to study there and then also live by yourself, it's not easy. So, but he kind of like graduated, established, and when he was studying, like I got married and came in here. So we kind of like build a life together. But it's harder for people to come from a different country, different culture, and start and build that, credibility, versus somewhere where you are very comfortable. So I feel like, you should be proud of yourself. I'm sure everybody around you is so proud of you because you achieved that goal.
Thank you. Yeah.
And after that, after such hard work, because medicine itself, I have friends and I have family members who are like, doctors, and I've seen such a long process, and then after that, not it doesn't end there. It's just like your work actually begins after the training. And it's such a noble work. I have seen during my husband's ailment and when he passed away that how doctors are, how it's such a noble work. I mean, they are so dedicated. They're working like 24/7, making sure the patient gets the care that they need. And that's how, like, my respect for them even, even went higher because, and my daughter wants to be a doctor when she grows up. I mean, that was her goal since she was like 5. But I think after she lost her dad, it became, the why became stronger.
Oh.
And she really wants to be a doctor. She wants to study hematology because my husband battled rare blood disorder. And talking about COVID, he got sick, right? Like, so he had an autoimmune condition, which was under control and everything, and he led life more than a normal person could do. But after, in 2021, April, he gets COVID vaccine. And then the first dose did not do anything, but after the second dose, after he received the second dose, he started having high grade
Oh.
fever, and then everything went downhill from there. Then he ended up having multi-organ failure.
Oh.
So, yeah, it was traumatic, but any kind of life-changing events, small, big, and everybody has their own struggle. Um, I I feel like nobody should downplay any struggle because everybody faces the challenges in their own ways. And how you just mentioned, like, you were such a like established doctor, a physician, you have your own practice, you're doing great, and then there's that illness kind of like prevented you from going back to work. And again, going back to our faith, right? It's nothing in our hand.
Mhm.
It just speaks that everything, like, we can try, but ultimately it's his decision. And then we have to surrender to that. But I know, I want to say to everybody how I met her, or how I got to know her. So I found her name from a common friend, and then saying that, she's an activist. She was doing this amazing 5K promotion for the children of Gaza last year. And that's how I feel. I also run a charity organization. So whenever I see people helping and doing things for the humanitarian cause, I just get so addicted to those people, kind of like inclined to those people, that I need to bring them in my circle so that we can collaboratively make the world a little bit better place. So that's how I know her. I hunted her down. I called her, and then, yeah, I know her since then. And she gave me the opportunity to be a part of that 5K. And then she also came to my fundraiser for my charity organization benefit dinner. And then I got to. I mean, it says that whenever you meet somebody for a good cause, your bond is very strong, and that's how I know her. And I got to know an amazing person. So Taslima, talking about your, we know that you accomplished so much. So going back to your childhood, like, how was your early childhood, and then like, or like childhood and early adulthood, if you can say something about that.
So I had 3 brothers. One of my brothers passed away in 2016
So
from
sorry.
cancer. Thank you. But we grew up together. We were a very close-knit family. When we came in Guyana, it was like I think any regular childhood, we were pretty much happy. I was the only girl. I got a little bit of special treatment. I always got, I think, a little bit more things than the boys did. And so, of course, that led to some arguments, but we always really took care of each other. And when we came to the US, we moved to New York. We were some we the schools we went to were in Astoria, in New York, and at that time it was there were very few minorities there. It was a predominantly like Greek neighborhood,
Mm.
and we faced a lot of racism there, just because we were, first of all, we were Muslim. We weren't shy about saying that.
Right.
Um, and we were brown, and it was just different for the kids there. It was hard, especially myself. I was always the nerd of the family. And I was oblivious about everything. So when somebody challenged me in school, I would challenge them back, like, okay, I got an A, I beat you, you got a A minus or a B, and I was not shy about that. But because of how I was, my brothers actually ended up facing a lot of
Mhm.
hardships because we were in the same schools, and some of the parents had kids in multiple grades, so it was tough on them, I think. But they always supported me. Like I feel like throughout childhood, my brothers were always so supportive of me. Um, my parents, like, when we moved in Guyana, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, but when we moved to New York, both of my parents had to work,
Mm.
and so it was a big shock to us, to have our parents working all the time, sometimes 2 to 3 jobs working, and then we moved to Florida in 1995, and things were a lot better there because people were used to seeing different
People of color.
ethnicities.
Yeah.
Yes. It was nothing new, nothing different. There's like, okay, I either like you or don't like you, not because of your color,
Color,
but
right.
just because I just don't get along with you.
Right.
Um, and so I think like that helped it, especially myself and my brothers, like it helped us a lot. Just kind of settle into the US a lot more than we were in New York. Um, and just like I just remember my parents being very supportive as we were growing up in terms of school. Like that was their priority. You have to get good grades. You have to focus on school. Nothing else matters. We weren't allowed to get jobs. We weren't allowed to do anything else other than focus on school. And there's a good and bad in that, in terms of like we became so codependent on each other.
Mm.
Like it was me and my brothers and my parents against the world. That was it. And that was basically how we grew up, like just going through everything.
Right. And I think, as you mentioned about how your parents supported you in your childhood, to be kind of like, how what you aspire to be,
Mhm.
that is so important for every child, especially people of color, and me being also from Southeast Asia. But I was born also to a household where there was like woman empowerment was prevalent. Like my mom was a school teacher, English teacher for like 20 years. My dad is an engineer, and they always, like, me and my sister, we don't have any brother, but uh they always taught us that, you know there should not be anything you can do that the man would be able to do and you cannot do. You should be able to go. You can you can conquer the world if you have that faith, have faith in Allah, and also the perseverance and determination. Nothing should hold you back. And I think that motivation, that encouragement, a lot of our young girls lack in the household, and that's why even they have those ambitions, but they kind of like fade out in the way. because they don't get that proper encouragement. And now it's a lot better, but still there is the sun preference. It's prevalent in, especially, I mean, everywhere, I would say. The undertone is there everywhere, but like in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and in Arab world,
And Guyanese culture
okay,
too.
and there,
It's
there you
there
go,
too.
there you go. Yeah, so that those things are there, and that need to go, because my husband was so big on woman empowerment. And when I talk about women empowerment, it's not like, I mentioned that in my podcast before, like people sometimes take feminism and
Mhm,
woman empowerment together, like kind of like that mix, that, the blur that line. I want to be very clear that feminism doesn't mean to be, exposing yourself and being a commodity. And, okay, the Western people are able to wear bikinis, why I can't wear? I will be an empowered woman by wearing that. That's nothing empowerment in there at
mhm,
all. Being a Muslim, I think the more covered you are, the more modest you are, you will be well respected and seen, you know, as a person, to be respected, looked up to, you know
absolutely.
and so woman empowerment to me, how I was raised, and how my husband motivated me and encouraged me, is like, to have the rights, equal rights, to be able to achieve the things, to climb up the ladder the same way a man, of a male gender, would be able to do that, and to have that boldness, to bravery, to speak up for the truth and not be afraid, and also not to be afraid to be imperfect, because I think the women are, like, engineered, or they kind of like, programmed in a way that, oh, you need to be perfect, you are the mother, you are the wife, you are the, you need to be best cook, you cannot make mistakes. And when boys or guys make mistakes, they're like, oh, boys are always boys. And it used to piss my husband off, like anything. Like, he used to say that the mothers need to tell them, no, it's not right. Why boys would be boys? We're all human beings, right? And if they're not taught how to treat women from childhood, they will not be able
Mhm,
to. And that's why my husband, I mean, my kids grew up seeing how affectionate, how respectful he was to me, to his mother, to my mother, my sister. And that's how I feel empowerment should be, like, to motivate, encourage, and have the ability to do and conquer anything in the world. And that's why I always make sure that people don't confuse my podcast topic or theme, woman empowerment and feminism, together, because I'm not talking about the quote unquote feminism at all. My empowerment is like how I see you as an empowered woman, like how you faced those challenges and you came out like stronger. And like, you were not able to go back to work, but you are still living, so gracefully, and, just doing things for good cause. Life, it throws curveballs at
mhm.
you, but you have to gather yourself up and see how you can do the best in those circumstances. And to have the ability to do that, that is itself is empowerment.
Yeah.
So to me, um, and I feel like everybody goes through some challenges in their life, and I'm sure having like a practice for 12 years of your, and especially to become a doctor and going through that whole lengthy process, and then being able to be there, which you dreamt of, and then not being able to go back because of your health, is just, so overwhelming. And also, sometimes feels like heartbreaking, right? But I'm sure that, I've seen your husband is amazing and so supportive. And coming to that, I would like to ask, like, you are from Guyana, and I know your husband is from Pakistan. So how did you guys meet, and how did that work?
So we actually met on Match.com.
Okay.
Um, we we met in 2017. So my brother passed away in 2016, April of 2016, and I had been on and off of Match and Shadi.com and all of those for a long time. Like going through medical school, there's no unless you meet somebody in school or in residency,
There's no
there's no
way.
opportunity.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'd been on and off of those sites for a while, and it when it was coming up on the anniversary of my brother's death, I realized like I was the closest to my brother. Like we were 16 months apart. We grew up very close to the point where in school people thought we were twins. Like we looked alike, we did everything together, and so coming up on his 1 year death anniversary, I was just like, this is gonna be bad. And, I was like, I'm just gonna go sign on to Match, find somebody to talk to. Hopefully it works out, but I need something to do that's gonna give me a little bit of an outlet somewhere.
Right.
So I found like Amar, my husband, he had messaged me 6 months prior, and I didn't have my subscription active, so I didn't see his message. And he had messaged me 6 months prior. I never responded. He had messaged me about a month before I signed back on. So there were two messages sitting there from him. He was a horse enthusiast. When we were in Florida, my dad had bought a horse for me. So I had a picture on my profile of me and Princess, my horse. And he was commenting on that. So I just, okay, I'm like, he's Muslim. He doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke, he looks decent, he's a professional, like, and he seems nice. Like his pictures were
Right.
nice, and in terms of like he seems like a good spirit, and it's like, okay, I think God sent this one. I'm gonna
Right.
try. And I reached out to him, and he was I think at that point, like he tells this story often. He was like just so shocked that I actually responded. And then we just started. First, we texted, and then we talked on the phone, and then eventually we met up like about a week and a half later.
So he knew you were from Guyana.
He knew I
Okay.
was from Guyana. Yes. Um, and then so I'll go back and talk a little bit about like the dynamics in my family in a sec, but to me, like I never cared where somebody was
Right. As long
from.
as he's a good Muslim,
A
a good
Muslim.
person.
That was my
Right.
criteria.
Right.
Like no drinking, no smoking, Muslim.
Yeah.
That was the big thing. And um, I mean, I did have some like physical, like I wanted somebody at least my height or taller. Like that was my
That's the standard criteria
yes.
for anybody, I feel like, unless and
Yeah.
until like, love happens at
Yes.
love at first sight, which,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
So, and I don't think I even paid attention that he was Pakistani.
Mm.
I was just like, okay. Honestly, I was more concerned that the 1 year anniversary of my brother's death was coming up.
And you wanted to connect to somebody so that you can talk. And I think grief, it just I can relate that so much because talking to someone, it's so powerful and
Hmm.
healing.
And
Talking to
I
the right person,
Yeah,
right?
and I
Yeah.
couldn't talk to my family
Because
because
they're also sad.
they were
Yeah.
suffering,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
My parents were suffering together. One of my brothers was already married, had his own
Mm.
family, and he was away. And the younger brother just was not a talker. Like
He kind of keeps everything in
yes.
himself. Yeah.
So, and I was the one who had to put on the happy face for everybody.
Right.
Like I had to manage everybody's emotions. And so, or at least I felt that way. Um, and so there was no outlet for me. So I was like, okay, I need something.
Somebody or to talk to. Yeah.
Yes.
I think like when a family suffers a grief, it's just, it happened to me as well as a mother, of course. And like I was when I lost my husband, it felt like the whole world crumbled, because he was my lifeline, my best friend, and the love of my life. And so when I lost him, it felt like I will not be able to survive because we were emotionally so dependent on each other, and we were childhood sweethearts. So, and but for my children, I could not be sad because they're already sad. and I cannot show them that I'm sad. And they were doing the same thing. So they
Yes.
were trying to they know that what dad meant to mom. So they said, okay, mom is already super sad. Like, we cannot make mom more sad. They were worried about me. And then that's why they were kind of like, be also play that, put up that happy face. So we were all kind
Exactly.
of faking each other, all three
Yes.
of us. And so that I can relate that so well.
Yes, you
How,
understand.
yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
And it's like, grief it's kind of like you drown in grief and it kind of hits you in waves, and just it can be years after that happened. Your brother passed away in 2016. I lost my husband 2021. It had been years for you and years for me, but I think grief never goes away. You just manage it,
You learn to manage it.
manage it better.
Exactly.
It's
Yes.
just grief is such a thing that it stays with you, and it will stay with you till the end of your life. I mean, at least to me, it feels like I'm never going to get over it. But I'm just probably, Allah has given me the ability to manage it better. And I'm sure it goes the same way for you,
Exactly. Yes.
and even harder for your parents. Like, to lose a child, I cannot even imagine that what it might have been for them.
Yes. And they just didn't know, and I think we all just didn't know how to talk, and
Right.
also, like, culturally, talking to a counselor is not like, they wouldn't go talk to
Correct.
somebody,
It's a taboo kind of like
yes.
still. I
Still,
feel like,
yes.
oh, the talking to a counselor, it gives like people a psychiatrist vibe,
Yeah.
like, oh, something is wrong mentally. No,
No,
sometimes,
that's the only thing that saved me
right.
is that I eventually, like the last couple of years, I found a really good counselor, and there's been a lot of other things that have happened, but she's been able to help me even process the grief from losing my brother, which I hadn't. And
Mhm.
it was just like you're saying, it came in waves, and then it's debilitating. And there's just really nothing, like, Amar tries to be supportive, but he never got the chance to meet my brother, and I think, like, that's one of those things, if he had met him, that I feel like he would understand maybe a little bit
But
more,
I
but he
think
tries.
I know I think people who did not go through that kind of grief or life-changing event, they can be the nicest people on earth, and also they can wish the best for you. But just because they did not go through it, they don't know,
Yeah.
like they haven't experienced. And I'm happy
It's
for them
hard to
that they didn't.
understand,
Yeah,
yes.
they can be empathetic, but they don't understand how
Mhm.
it works. Even for my parents, they love me so much. But they just, sometimes they kind of like don't understand that why I'm
Still.
acting like irrational, which I mean, I try to be rational most of the time, but sometimes I feel angry and I'm like, why the people on street 100-year-olds are walking and my husband died when he was barely 45. Why did that happen? Now that is not like a rational question, that those people have nothing to do with, and for
Exactly.
them, I'm happy for them. But in my old grief managing thing in my own world, that's my part of missing him,
Mhm.
and it has nothing to do with anybody. It might be, so there are some people like, who kind of understand you, and I think the best thing to do at that time is to keep quiet. And I have 2 to 3 friends who are my best friends, who have been with me all throughout. The day I lost my husband, they were there. When I was going through all those before he passed, they were there. So they're my rocks, and they just come and listen. Sometimes I
Yes.
vent, I say things that like, and I later on I called him up. I'm like, was I like, did I just, I didn't mean anything, and they were like, yeah, you're fine, you're fine, and you guys are watching, that who I'm talking about, like, about. And they're kind of like, I feel like, I'm angry sometimes, and I kind of like call them at 12 a.m. and I'm like, yeah, I need to talk to you, and they know why I'm calling. And they would be like, yeah, go ahead, and they would not say a word from the other side. They would just quietly, patiently listen to me. And I think that is so, once you
Mhm.
can talk to people, it's like such you feel a lot of healing takes place when you can express your grief.
Yes.
And some people don't do that. They keep the grief inside. I think I can never do that. I think I will die, like if I keep it
That's
inside.
exactly how I was feeling.
Mm.
It's that one year. I mean, I got myself a saltwater aquarium, and I was like, tried so many different
But
ways to
nothing
distract.
works
No,
because your heart is so heavy.
yes,
It feels like 100 pounds.
I did a solo trip to Malaysia and Singapore. My brother loved Singapore. I'm like, I'll do this trip for him. I met some of his friends, but still, it's like nothing.
Yeah.
So I was like,
That void, that emptiness, it just doesn't go away because that person is not there with you.
yeah,
You can do so many things, but it's just like, and you will understand, like every morning I wake up and I still feel that it would be 4 years this October 10th, but not a single day went by that I wake up in the morning and I don't feel that heaviness or emptiness in my heart that, oh my God, my husband is not there. Wasim is not there with me. And that feeling has not changed from that day till now.
wow.
So, but then do I sit on the bed or lay down on the bed? No, I push myself. I go to
Yes.
work. I do everything that is necessary. I run the found. I mean, I have been doing everything that's needed and over and beyond. And I've been extremely busy. But I mean, as you're saying, doesn't matter. You can be busy 24 hours out of 24 hours, but still your mind,
Yes.
knows like you cannot take off your mind from that thing. So that I mean, it's very complicated. Grief is so complicated.
Yes.
It just people who go through it, understand the other person who lost their loved one so
Yes.
well.
Yeah, it's strange, but I feel like and that's why anybody I talk to now, I'm like, you know what, get yourself a good counselor. It really does
It
help.
does help. Yeah.
But kind of going back to like meeting Amar and um so we ended up talking and realizing like, hey, we click. And Amar, had, some like they his family moved to the US when he was 8 also,
Oh.
where he's 6 months older than I am. So we kind of had a very similar, like, coming to the US story.
Background. Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Um, and he was in Bedford, I was in South Fort Worth, so we were about, like, 30 minutes away from each other, which was, alhamdulillah, like, it was perfect. And then we realized pretty quickly, like, hey, we want to get married. And that's where like things got tough with my family.
Mhm.
His family was his dad was in Dubai. He's a professor of engineering. He was there in Dubai at the time, and his mom, I think his mom was in Pakistan. They didn't really have any input. He was pretty independent to begin with, so he kind of just lived his own life.
Right.
But I live with my parents. I lived with my brothers were two of my brothers were living at home at the time. One had passed away, so it was just one brother. And my grandmother was living with us. Like we
Mm.
were just
Like a
like,
joint family.
yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I had my own practice, and my dad was my office manager. So my mom, my dad, and I went to work in the morning at 7 o'clock. We came home together at 7 o'clock. We lived our lives together and
Very, very close knit.
close. And
Yes.
after my brother passed, like in the afternoons, I would go, like, they had a TV in their room, so I would go sit and watch TV with them every afternoon. We would eat dinner together, we would watch TV together, and then once whatever show we were watching finished, I would go to my room, and that was my life.
Mm.
So there was nothing else in my life, and then Amar shows up.
Mm.
Um, and it was tough, I think, for them. I realized, like, after I got married, I realized a lot of things that were happening, that I was blind to, that were happening in the practice. Um, but and I think because of and this is the part where it's a little tough to talk about because, like, growing up, my dad was my best friend. Like, he was really my only friend
Right.
growing up. Um, but like, when you are so close, like entangled with your family, it becomes a little tough because they don't I think they forget that you are actually like a young person trying to get your own
Right.
life.
And that's normal.
Yeah.
That's something that everybody does and everybody should, and that it's encouraged in Islam that you should get married and have, but it's hard sometimes when you are so the jealousy kind of seeps
Yes,
in
and it was I think like even with my practice, like my dad had become so
involved. Yeah.
controlling of the practice, that he saw Amar as a threat also, like not just to taking me away, but to taking the practice
Wow.
away. And so he became increasingly aggressive.
Oh wow.
Um, and it just kind of devolved from there. And kind of to go back a little bit, a few years when I met Amar when I was 35. When I was 30, I had met somebody else,
Mhm.
and I actually got engaged for about a month.
So he was from Guyana?
This was also a Pakistani.
Okay.
Um, I'm glad that didn't work out. My parents did the right thing for the wrong reasons. But they were also he was aggressive. My parents and my brothers were aggressive, and they clashed, and that didn't work out. But I realized then that they're not very enthusiastic about me getting married.
Hmm.
That it was like things that they should have, like I had these false like expectations because I grew up very idealistic. I grew up believing that everybody does the right thing for the right reasons.
Right.
And I real like
You were kind of like a perfectionist because
I was
you were
very
taught to be,
naive.
yeah.
Yes, I was very naive, and I was thought to be a people pleaser and to make everybody else happy, even at the expense of myself. Um, and so when that first engagement didn't work out, I realized something's wrong here. And I couldn't put my finger on it because I was still so very much enmeshed with my family. My dad could do no wrong, absolutely no wrong. Um, and so I realized when I met Amor that I was starting down the same pathway again.
Mm.
Because I was encouraged since I was young, I was encouraged to share everything with my
Right.
father.
And that you do because when you grow up in a same household and then your parents are your confidants, you
Yes,
confide them,
yes.
you know, you confide into them like for everything, right?
But if that person is that you're confiding to, like you're giving up a lot of power to that person. And I think you don't realize that growing up, like there's a lot of power in knowing everything about somebody else.
Mm.
And that if they don't understand, and I understand my dad, like his mom was a narcissist, and I believe like he had very similar traits. But um if they don't understand that they're going to have to let you go at some point, they use this information to cut you off from the rest of the world.
Right.
And that was the same thing with the first time I got engaged. I was encouraged to share every little detail about what we talked about, what our goals were, like what we were thinking. I was encouraged to share all of that. And so those things were then used against that person. So when I met Amar, I started doing the same thing. And thankfully, like I knew I was savvy enough, and I'm probably older. I was 35 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized, hey, I think we know we want to get married. Let's just start premarital counseling now.
Mm-hmm.
And the counselor was really good, in terms of he realized very early what was happening, and he gave me a really good piece of advice. He's like, if you always tell negative things to your parents about Amar, that's all they're gonna know is that this is a negative thing. If you tell them all the details and there's some good, some bad, they're gonna hear the bad because you're their daughter and they're gonna think this is all that person is the bad. They're gonna somehow not hear any of the good.
Right.
So he told me to stop. And he really just like was very forceful with that. Like and we did premarital counseling together, Amar and I at the same time with this counselor and he's a Muslim counselor. We did telemedicine with him. And he's like, listen, you don't have to tell all the
Right.
details about everything. Just tell the good things.
Right.
Tell what makes you want to marry this person. Um, and
I think
unless it's something dangerous, then
I think you just brought a good point in, that giving people, sharing everything with a person, and even if it's your parents, I think it's just after a certain point when you're adult and you're a mature adult and you're making those decisions, every individual is different. And it's giving them, the other person, a lot of power over, like, to kind of like get to interfere in your life. And if it can be your parents, and I know someone, a family member, who also says the same thing, that she gave a lot of power to people she shouldn't be, and that kind of ruined her marriage, you know. And that should, maybe, I mean, she's happy that, she's not with that person. But again, she feels like, maybe if I wouldn't have given that much power, maybe things would have been different. You have that space to kind of like, you know, sort things out within yourselves, like especially within husband and wife. And this thing, I knew it. I don't know how. Maybe my husband was very wise. He was an old soul. He was wise since he was born. And I never shared any. My parents loved my husband. So we were, as I said, we were childhood sweethearts. My father in law and my dad were very good friends.
true blessing.
That's like this, our marriage, our family dynamics were like made in heaven. It's just like fairy tale, too good to be true. So, you know how, like, our dads are best friends, and then, but even then, even being the best husband and everything, I never shared amongst our, even like the teeny tiny arguments or fights we had. It's normal to have it in, if you're a married couple, but I never shared anything with my parents or with anybody, because I thought that our relationship is close enough to even let anybody in. We can solve things ourselves, because when there is immense love and trust, I think you can solve anything, doesn't matter. And you should not be vulnerable. My point is, you should not be vulnerable to people you feel like would not add value to that situation or to that problem. So, yeah.
Recognizing that is difficult, especially if you've grown up. Say,
Especially with your parents, like,
yes.
you think that they're your well wishers, which they are, but sometimes it doesn't work out that way.
Sometimes it gets twisted. It really
It gets
does. Yeah.
complicated. It gets complicated, and
Yeah.
then
And they don't, and not that they are bad people,
no,
right?
no, they want the
It's,
best for you.
yes, it just becomes their idea of what's best for you versus what
Yes,
really is actually best for you.
because sometimes we see in South Asian culture, the mother-in-law, and I think mother-in-law in any culture. My mother-in-law was really nice. So yeah, she passed away in 2016. She was amazing. She's nice. She has been a blessing. She always loved me, and then she always told me that, you were a blessing, that, it was a blessing for my son that you got married to him. So, but mostly mother-in-laws are kind of like villains, right?
Yeah. My mother-in-law, mother-in-law is good.
Yeah, so they are like, how they want their son to get married, and I really don't want to be that kind of a mother-in-law. And so they want their sons to get married, but once the son get married and they see that, oh, like, my boy, my child, my golden boy, who was like mine, always gave all the attention to me, now is kind of like, it's divided, right? It's divided. They're going out with their wife, or kind of like giving more attention, or kind of like it's divided, which is normal for a young guy to
Yes.
do. And I think the same thing happened with your dad.
I
Like
think so. With me, we
yeah.
were so entwined with
Mm.
each other. Like he couldn't understand and he couldn't just process that I needed to be able to
Of
give this
course.
attention.
Yeah.
Like I was I was starting a new family and I remember before I got married, he said this and I think about this all the time and I think he like Amaro says I sugarcoat things, but he said this to me, and it really was like such an important moment because he's like, "Oh, so now you're going to be loyal to your husband and not us." And he was upset about that. I was like, and the right answer for him, which is what I said, which is very wrong, is no, I'm like, my loyalty is with you guys. And that's such a wrong statement when you're about to get married and start a new family.
I think loyalty to, like, you are
There's a
loyal to your
difference
parents, but
where,
it's like
yeah,
different. Like parent-child relationship and husband-wife relationship is very different.
different.
But
Yes.
I think I not I think I'm convinced that the closest relationship that you can have is with your husband. The husband-wife relationship is the closest relationship anybody
Absolutely.
can have. And you cannot be like, yeah, I love my son, but I want him to be happy. I want him to have a partner who will love him like how my husband loved me. So it's natural. And I know people get jealous, but it's like very toxic. And
Yes. Yes.
if you indulge on that more, that gets even
Yes.
worse.
And the bad part was that my brother had passed away. So I think all of that
You guys were
compounded.
so well bonded, like,
Yes.
and
And then
that
to lose him, like it was he like I felt like my dad was just holding on for dear life. Like he didn't want to lose
I
anything
think
else.
also his grief kind of played a role in
Mhm.
this, because talking about bonding, um, me, my husband, and my children are were very close knit. So we were like the closest family. But when my husband passed away, three of us like are even closer. So we kind of like hold on to each other.
Mhm.
We share each and every detail. Like you cannot even imagine, like everything, he shared. Like I probably not all child, like teenagers, or my son is 22, and not everybody shares with their parents like every, but because we are so close, and we became even closer, we share with each other everything. There is kind of no filter, like we are so close. But I think that thing happened with you, and your dad kind of like became even closer to
Yes.
you.
Yes.
And then when he saw that your husband, you love your husband or your fiance, and you're getting married, he felt the threat of losing
Yes.
you.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah, I think that thing worked. And I think counseling for anybody helps. And I feel like even older people who are battling this kind of emotions, and emotional, they're in an emotional mess, I think counseling would help him as well. I'm I mean, I don't know him. I'm sure he's wonderful looking at you. I know, but people have sometimes people's emotions and people's reactions come out in different ways, but that doesn't mean there can be wonderful people, but they just don't know how to manage their emotions well. And that's because just they don't have that skill. Because I used to get, before, whenever used to see somebody like not behaving in the right way they should be, I used to get really mad. I was like, oh my god, that's so inappropriate. How do they do that? But one of my friends who is like a psychiatrist, she told me, hey, because they don't have that skill, it's not their fault. And now I know, like, okay, they don't know any better. So
Yeah,
you
and
know
especially that generation, it's they it was not a part of it. Like they were never encouraged to share, to manage their emotions. Their parents never did that either. So it was just I think our generation, I'm like right on the cusp of millennial and Gen X. And I think with our generation, it's just it's acceptable
Mhm.
to say, "Okay, like, I don't wanna continue this.
Right.
I want to break the cycle. I want uh, to do things different, to say, "Okay, well, if I say something wrong to my kids," I have a 6 and a 4-year-old, "If I say something wrong, I'm gonna apologize. I'm not perfect. I sometimes I just really don't know better."
Just owning it. Like, I think
Yeah.
I think in that generation, and also moving forward, like we see people from our generation as well, that they don't own their mistakes. And it's so important to own their mistakes because,
Especially to your children.
yes, and my husband always owned it. Like, and I'm going to say it out loud. Whenever we had a fight, it's most of the time my fault because I was so stubborn, and he was like always that wise guy. He was like, "Oh, what is she talking about?" He would give me that look, even though he was not like only few years older than me. But then he would be like, "What is she talking about?" Like, but he would give me grace. He would just forgive. He was that kind man who would be like, "Okay." But I think just to understand, somebody's perspective and where they're coming from, it's so important because sometimes we cannot manage things if we are thinking from our own
Yes.
perspective and not owning it. Like, I know my dad, he's wonderful, but he thinks that he cannot make mistakes. And if he is caught making a mistake, he gets like really upset. And I know if he listens to this podcast, he would be like, "What were you talking about in that podcast?" But he does. I mean, he's
Mhm.
amazing. He's so smart. He was like topper in his engineering college. He was a professor. Then he worked all his life in Abu Dhabi National Company, and before
Wow.
that in Bangladesh in an oil company. So he's very smart. He's a perfectionist, and he doesn't. But we are human beings,
Mhm.
all of us make mistakes, so but he will not own it, and he would be like, no, and he would not even seek help sometimes. If like, non GPS days, when we didn't have
Mhm.
GPS and we are driving somewhere, my dad would not ask anybody. And you know who taught me that you seek help, that is going to help you get better, and then get somewhere faster or reach your destination quicker? My husband.
Wow.
He is my mentor. He taught me, he's like, you know what? Seek help, because most of the time, people, two things they don't do: they don't own their mistakes, they don't seek help. If
Exactly.
you do those two, life would be so much
Much
easier.
easier. Yes,
And I learned that. I
absolutely.
learned that. He said, delegate, seek help.
I learned that from Amar also.
Yeah.
It's because before I try to do everything myself. And he just, sometimes he just gives me this look of why? Why are you doing this?
Exactly.
You have the ability to ask for help. You have the ability, you have the resources to get the help. Why? Like,
Right.
and the person who's an expert in this area can make your life so much easier.
Right. Even smallest things. I mean, not even being an expert, but like as I said, the simple small thing of reaching somewhere. I mean, I know it's the era of GPS now. Nobody needs to ask, stop, unless and until your GPS is not working. So, but at that time when we used to see maps and drive
Mhm.
around, my dad would not ask
My dad
anybody.
is the
It feels
same.
like it hurts his ego. But my husband would just go to the nearest gas station. I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to go to that highway. How do I go there?" And he would go there right away, like after. And I learned from him. I'm like, he's so smart, And I mean, his connection to people, human interaction, connecting and maintaining that connection with empathy and kindness, seeking help when he's needing it. Like owning his mistakes, that made everything so much less complicated.
Yes.
Life made
Yes.
it made and it my made my life so much less complicated. I felt like, wow, I have never seen my life through that lens, which I started seeing after I got married to him, which is very, like, I got married to him at 18.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So my adulthood started by getting married to him. I graduated from high school. I got married to him. That was my goal.
Wow.
Yeah, my goal from 16. When I was 16, I
That's
made that goal
amazing.
that I would get married to him as soon as I turned 18, because, of course, I cannot get married at 16. But I finished my education after I got married, and he's the one who actually motivated me throughout. So, and you can see in me, like, how even after he's gone, he's that emotional anchor in my
Mhm.
life. He's kind of like always telling me that no, things would be okay. So you need those people in your life
I feel
to.
like I know him just from everything you say. Like, I wish I had gotten the actual chance to meet him.
Yeah, people say that, oh my God, the way you describe him, we already know him without seeing him. Yeah, but there are people, and I know I have seen how your husband interacts and deals with you. I mean, he is also very supportive. He
Mhm.
supports you in everything, and I think that's wonderful. And I'm sure at one point your dad will understand that you needed this man in your life to help you heal, be a better person, to
Absolutely.
evolve.
Absolutely.
Because we all evolve, but I think my evolution is so huge. It's so significant that the people who saw me at 18 and people who see me now, they cannot see. They're like, where is that old Farkhanda? Like, I did not have that much confidence. I did not have the the courage to speak up. I think that is so important. And being doing a podcast, even talking about empowerment, that is also an encouragement coming from my husband, that if you have an idea, if you want to speak up, that even two people listen to this, and then they kind of, it can change their lives. It can impact their lives in such a beautiful way. So I think all the young girls who were listening to Taslima's story, and I'm sure they'll be motivated. So it's wonderful to hear your story, and we're almost coming to the end of the podcast. It is such an empowering journey. So if I ask you that, out of, like, when you are battling through these challenges, and then all, like, losing your brother, and then also, your father kind of like getting jealous when you were getting married and stuff like that, in all these things, what's kind of like kept you going? Like, and I ask that to all my guests, like, I want to know, because I want to learn, like, what is that one thing that kept you going?
I know it sounds cliche, but I truly believe God means good for us. Like he really has a plan for us and we don't understand it. And it's one of those things like it always sticks to me. Like even in darkest moments, I always think that there's some reason I'm going through this.
Right.
There is something I'm supposed to be getting better at. And that's
Some
why I'm
goodness
going.
will come out of it.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. And it has borne out time and time again that um losing my brother was extremely difficult, but it made me a better person, made me understand that it's like you can survive even when your world stops, the world keeps going. And with everything that happened with my dad, I realized this was a tough one because that was my world. I realized that there are so many people in the world that wish you well, that
Absolutely.
that people have gone through a lot of things. You think you've gone through something bad, you talk to 5 people and 4 of them have gone through something
Something
really
worse.
horrible.
Right, right.
And so, like, I learned that, like, and that I had to, like, it was just an aha moment. Everything.
Like, your gratitude, your gratefulness becomes like, you appreciate things much more, like when you
Yes,
have those
yes.
kind of moments in life, and then you feel like the petty things that you were worrying about and all, you feel, why
Not
I
that
was
I'm
that.
s every once in a while don't still worry about the petty things, but it's
Mhm.
same yeah, it's like, why? Like, "Oh, you know what? Like, it really, at the end of the day, didn't matter that much."
Right.
And getting sick, losing my practice, losing like, that was my identity. Like, being a
Of
doctor
course.
was my
Of course.
identity, and
But
I realize I never would have spent that time with my 6 and 4-year-old. I never, ever
I
would
was
have
going to say
given
that.
up
Yes.
anything for my family. And after I got sick and I was forced to give up my practice, I gained Time with my husband. I mean, like, I experienced so many things with my 2 boys. I'm starting a new business. Like, it's all of these things that would never have happened
You're
if I was
basically
working.
seeing their childhood. And,
Yes.
Allah gave you that opportunity. You went through some hardship, but then it shaped up to be something better.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I believe that everything that comes up, I believe it is God making us grow a little bit more. And
absolutely.
it over and over, same thing.
I think I totally echo you because I feel like I have grown so much past 4 years. I see life in a totally different way. I'm more thankful. I
Yes.
appreciate things a lot more. I let go of things a lot more,
Yes.
which I never did before. Wasim would be so happy to know that I let go of things a lot easily. So, yeah, so I think that's a wonderful message. Well, with that, we come to the end of the podcast. Thank you so much for being
Thank you
my
for
guest.
having me.
Yeah, thank you. Wish you all the best in
Thank
your
you so
future
much.
endeavors.